The kingdom lay drowned in darkness, its silhouette barely visible in the endless sea of midnight. You stand on a distant hill miles away, staring into the void where the kingdom stands proud. The only light came from the distant stars and the pale ghost of the moon overhead. The world seemed peaceful, silent. It was nice. The cold wind blew, and crickets chirped. Then, with an explosion of light so violent it felt like the sky had been torn in half, midnight ceased to exist. A blinding flash swallowed the horizon, brighter than 1,000 suns. It was as if the heavens had cracked open, releasing a searing, otherworldly light that obliterated everything in its path. The entire landscape was bathed in a pure, hellish white that stretched far beyond the horizon. Your vision was wiped clean, consumed by an overwhelming radiance that felt like it was burning through your very mind. Everything disappeared. The land, the kingdom, even the night itself, devoured by this savage light. For a few terrible seconds, there was nothing but the light. Even with your eyes closed, you could see it, burning behind your eyelids, etching itself into your memories. Your shadows stretched out grotesquely long and warped, twisting on the ground like tortured specters fleeing from the blinding glow. The heat from the blast reached you, a wave of unbearable warmth that made the air around you feel poisonous, pressing against your skin like molten iron. And then, the fireball emerged, an enormous roiling sphere of pure annihilation, expanding with horrifying speed. It was a living sun, growing larger by the second, devouring everything in its wake, even from 25 miles away. You felt its heat as it pushed the very night away, transforming the sky into a sickening twilight. The air cracked with energy, the very atmosphere twisting and distorting as if reality itself was being ripped apart. The fireball climbed higher, growing into a monstrous, churning inferno that stretched towards the heavens. The ground beneath the kingdom glowed a deep, fiery red, as if the earth had split open to reveal the molten core beneath. The kingdom, once standing proudly in the distance, was now swallowed whole by the fireball, its towers and the walls crumbling into nothingness in the face of such raw, apocalyptic power. The very land seemed to quiver in fear. And then came the cloud. A massive, writhing column of smoke and fire surged upward, twisting and spiraling into the night sky. It wasn't just a cloud. It was a pillar of death, alive with fire and destruction. The base glowed a molten, hellish red, while the upper proportions billowed outwards, darkening the heavens into a mushroom of doom. The cloud spread, expanding, with a terrifying hunger, devouring the stars and moon in its path. The sky turned black as pitch, swallowed by this roiling mass of devastation. For a few agonizing moments, there was nothing but silence. The world had been muted by the sheer force of the blast. It was as though the very fabric of reality had been shocked into stillness. There were no sounds, no rustling leaves, no whispering winds. Only the oppressive weight of nothingness pressing down on you. Then the sound hit. It started as a low, ominous rumble, like the distant roar of some vast, unseen beast. But the rumble quickly grew, swelling into a deafening cacophony that shook the earth itself. It wasn't just a sound. It was a physical force, a wall of noise so intense it seemed to tear at your eardrums and rattle your bones. The roar rolled across the plains like an unstoppable tidal wave, crushing everything in its path. The ground beneath you trembled violently, as if the earth was trying to tear itself apart, sending deep, reverberating tremors through your legs and into your chest. Then, without warning, the shockwave crashed into you. It hit like the fist of a giant, an invisible battering ram of air and pressure that slammed into you with brutal force. The blast tore through the landscape, flattening trees and shredding earth. You were thrown backwards, the sheer force of the wind sending you crashing to the ground as if you had been struck by an enormous hammer. The air itself seemed to scream, a high-pitched whine that mingled with the deafening roar of the explosion. The pressure was unbearable, a crushing force that made it hard to breathe, hard to think. The world spun around you as if the very laws of nature had been torn apart by the explosion. The sky itself appeared to warp and bend, the stars flickering in and out of existence, as though the universe was straining under the weight of the detonation. When the shockwave finally passed, the landscape was left in ruin. The once clear sky was now a swirling void of ash and smoke, falling from hell, from an inverted world. It fell like some cursed gray snowstorm. It coated your skin and clothes, sticking like the residue of death itself. The moon, once a beacon of pale light, was now nothing more than a faint, sickly orb, barely visible through the thick haze of debris that hung the sky like a death shroud. The kingdom, the place you had known, the place you had watched from afar, was now nothing more than a dark, distant memory erased from existence beneath the towering, ever-growing cloud that still loomed overhead. The cloud pulsed with a sickening glow, twisting and expanding, casting the land in an unnatural shifting twilight. It was a monument to destruction, a reminder that the world had been scarred forever by the explosion. The air itself felt hostile, thick with the sense of something profoundly wrong. This wasn't just destruction, it was a horror beyond anything that you could have ever imagined. You all stand in stunned silence, your hearts pounding with a fear so deep it seemed to freeze your very souls. The blast had not just destroyed a kingdom, it had left a scar on the world, a wound that would never heal. You were witness to something incomprehensibly powerful, something that had turned the night into an eternal reminder of what you had lost and what had barely survived. The silence after the explosion was far worse than the blast itself. It was a silence that held nothing but fear. Fear of what had just been unleashed. Fear of what might still come. Fear that they too would be swallowed by the darkness. Soon, a wall of worry hit you all at once. Without a single word spoken, everyone in unison runs to the wagon. However, it was gone, blown away by the shockwave. Everyone starts running towards the kingdom, trying to get there as fast as they can. The worry and dread weighed on them, making it hard for any of them to run. The unsettling darkness from the night made it hard to see, nonetheless get to the kingdom. You arrive at the kingdom at 5 a.m., the sun barely over the mountains, but with the ash it tinted the world gray. As the ash rained down like snow, as you enter what's left of the kingdom gates, you start to see bones. Oh, so many bones. Destroyed homes and buildings, some still on fire, and many dead bodies everywhere. Thesis: you run to the cheese statue to find nothing, just a giant crater from where the explosion went off. You then run to your husband's house to see nothing but rubble, skeletons from those who once lived. Your thoughts were quickly interrupted by a scream that sent chills down your back. In Trotty, thoughts of your wife and kid flashed through your eyes as you pushed your legs to continue to move. You ran and you ran to make it to the tea shop, but as you get there, you find nothing but rubble and her sign that hung above the entrance, now broken in half and on the ground. You rummage through the ruin trying to find them, but more importantly, find hope. Hope that they're still alive. Hope that you could still live happily with them. But deep inside you knew that they were dead. And as you move one final broken piece of wood, you find their skeletons, holding on to one another in fear. Thoughts of sadness shoot through your mind, but it quickly gets interrupted by a scream, so loud, but yet so distant. In frustration, anger, and sadness, you scream as well. Rowan, you run to the best of your ability to your bookstore to see Ruin. All of your books, the memories, your prized spells, the Book of Inconvenience and Book of Convenience both, all of it is gone. But then a slight breeze blows, making a single page of a book go to your feet. It was a spell, the Dispel Evil spell, the only remaining piece of the Book of Convenience. You hold this close to you, as if it's a treasure, It is the only thing left from the ruin. You are deep in thought when you hear a bone-chilling scream. Amthar. Immediately, you book it to your apartment, dodging burning rubble and ruin as you make it to your apartment. You find it collapsed. You rummage through it trying to find your brother, and when you do, you find his mangled corpse in pieces. You then hear a blood-curdling scream semi-distant from you. It made you want to scream too. All of your pent-up anger and sadness, but you didn't. You stood in front of your now truly dead brother. Asari. The sight from what you saw, a destroyed city, terrified you. You ran and ran to get to the orphanage, but you're tired. You had just finished a 25-mile run as fast as you can, but you push through the pain. As you get to the orphanage, you see it all destroyed, but a small circle in the middle of the rubble. In the middle, a half-dead Theo. No rubble laid inside this circle. Theo, covered in ash, on his knees, his body burnt and bloody. There is no way he could have survived. From your distance, all you can hear is him crying. You approach him and try to ask him questions. You shake him and shake him, but nothing gets through him. He's still crying, making small, quiet noises from crying. As you shake him and do everything you can to get him to snap out of it, he just doesn't see you, as if you weren't there. He then puts his burnt, bloody hands on his face and lets out a blood-curdling scream of anger, sadness, and frustration all at once. You could feel the pure emotion from the scream. Seeing and hearing this made you also start to cry. You all meet up where the Jesus statue once was, now replaced with a crater, a scar on the world. As you all meet up, Asari drags Theo with her. Rowan is holding a piece of paper so carefully. The other three just meet up with you. Camille walks towards you guys, her face in shock as she looks towards you and says, "Are there any survivors?" Asari then looks towards the burnt, broken, ash-covered Theo, his clothes burnt and tattered. He wasn't crying anymore, but it was very obvious that he was. You guys then hear another bang following another, both 20 seconds away from each other. It sounded distant, but it was the same explosion that caused this.